PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. We had another exciting day at the Tata Steel Masters round 4. So I want to look at the game between Pentala Harikrishna, and he was white, against Max Warmerdam. So Harikrishna, 38 years old, the old man of the tournament, playing Max Warmerdam, 24 years old, young Dutch talent. So, knight f3 starts out as a reti, but as the reti so often does, transposes into another opening. So now it's a reverse Grunfeld, and then we go into a Catalan, c4. So we've already had this exact position in, a couple of games already in the tournament. So Warmerdam took on c4, and if you remember, Gukesh played queen a4 against Giri, and in the previous round Pragyanananda played d takes c5 against Eragaisti, and that's what Harikrishna did here. So I always feel that this endgame is kind of good fun for white, because it's very hard for black to generate meaningful winning chances. The main line in this is c3 and then b takes c3. And you can see that this beautiful bishop on g2 strikes down to b7. And, it takes time for the bishop on c8 to get into play. White has very nice activity. Now, ways have been found for black to play that, and it is completely playable, but still, I just think that white potentially has all the fun there. But Warmerdam plays it in a completely different way. He goes for b5, and this is really sharp. So hang on to that pawn, but, you can see that black is very weak on the long diagonal. In fact, white could straight away play knight e5, exploit that pin, and black would have to give up material. But this is one of these typical Catalan exchange sacrifices where, this pawn majority could be very nice, and black has a lot of activity. Harikrishna thought for about 6 minutes here. He has actually played this before, as has Warmerdam. a4. So this looks very logical to break up these pawns. Of course, if the pawn advances, then this pawn could be taken. Might even be possible just to take the exchange once those pawns are damaged as well. So bishop a6 played. Again, it's possible to take material, but black would keep things closed. I think as long as the A file is closed, then black has compensation. So Harikrishna played knight g5, threatening bishop takes knight. And Warmerdam reacted very quickly. Harikrishna's had this before, and again, Ganguly against him played rook c8. And, Harikrishna managed to win, but basically black should have been all right out of the opening. But Warmerdam reacted with knight d5 instead. So he'd obviously prepared this. He was playing very quickly. Knight e4. So knight floats in, hitting the bishop, which went to b4. Now, this has been seen before. There's a game between Kaimer and Aronian that went knight c3. It went like this. This was also very complicated, but basically black was all right here, and the game finally ended in a draw. Long game. But Harikrishna thought for 13 minutes here, and instead of knight c3, he sacked a piece. And this is where it all kicked off, because after this, basically the game never settled. It was chaos. It was like the pieces were floating on a sea without an anchor in the middle. So watch what happened. King takes knight, knight g5 check, and knight takes e6. So you can see these pawns have disappeared, which means this knight is vulnerable, this knight is vulnerable, the rook is at the other end of the diagonal. It's such a tricky position. Now at the moment, what's the score? White is a piece down. If this is taken, then this is just good for white. Check. You take here and you take there and check. You get the bishop back. So that second knight wasn't taken, and instead knight e7. But still, this one is pretty vulnerable. This is no good, because black is winning material there. Black is very stable. So after 6 minutes, Harikrishna played a takes b5. Now there's a difference, because if bishop takes b5, then this can be taken. If king takes knight, rook takes bishop. And if bishop c6, I mean, this is so tactical, rook d4. And if king takes, rook takes c4, hits both bishops. Do you see what I mean when I say that the black's pieces don't have an anchor? They don't have a pawn protecting them here or perhaps here or here. So they're all at sea. And that's why often these tactics work in white's favour. So a really sharp position. So this bishop had to drop back to b7. Now this is a threat to take. So knight d4. So, okay, the position is sort of settled. So let's take stock. White has 2 pawns for a piece. Black's pieces are rather loose. King is a little bit exposed, but obviously no queens on the board. At the moment, safe enough. But king f7 played after a big think. So this was Warmerdam's first think of the game. Big think. He thought for 45 minutes over this move. So basically, this would have been the end of his preparation, where he probably just saw, well, the computer thinks this is okay for black. Great, I'll play it. I'm a piece up. But of course, he would also realise this is tricky. And king f7 is a good move. Now, I mean, there are various things that white can try here. But Harikrishna went for, after the 13-minute think, rook a4. It looks very logical to just put some pressure here, you know, more pressure on the diagonal, and that pawn is loose as well. And Warmerdam played c3. He wants to make use of that pawn. And certainly it looks like a tempting move. The machine thinks that black should compromise here and just give back that pawn, and thinks, well, it's roughly level. But okay, it's just very complicated. But c3, I have to say, you know, played after 12 minutes, is a tempting move. You know, it feels like a disruptive move for white. I mean, there are various things that white could try here. It's possible to take here. And, well, it's still very complicated, but basically it should be about level. I mean, for example, this. It's still 3 pawns for a piece. Rook and bishop against rook and 2 knights. Looks roughly level. But Harikrishna wanted to maintain tension, and he played rook d3. So very tempting move, because it might be possible to hassle the king. And there's pressure here. Of course, you know, white would very much like to see this which would bring that bishop into the game. 22-minute think from Warmerdam, and he came up with a5. So, he's looking to cement that bishop there. And certainly if that's taken, then, yeah, I think black would be very happy to exchange some pieces there. So b takes c3. And there's all kinds of mad things going on here. Of course, if knight takes, then bishop takes. And if knight takes rook, rook check. Now, not king g6, because of bishop e4 and the king is in trouble. The king goes back to e8, and then you can take the rook. There's no connection here. So knight takes c3 would be a mistake. So bishop takes c3. In fact, the computer reckons that rook c8 is the best move, and I believe it. It's still fantastically complicated. And then this. But yeah, it's a mad position after rook f3 check. But anyway, should be about level. But bishop takes c3 played. And now Harikrishna missed a big move. He could have played knight c6. So the threat is to take on e7. And if bishop takes, this is already very good for white. Strong pass pawn. This bishop is flying. Both rooks look very dangerous. Rook check. Bishop e3. I mean, those pieces are just fantastic. Should be better for white. But instead, rook f3 check played. And now black should play king e8. It looks counterintuitive. I think this is the thing. In this kind of wild position, it's very hard to use your intuition. You've got to calculate exactly, because it seems counterintuitive to play the king back to block the rooks, to split the rooks. But this should be roughly level. So, for example, after this, exchange of pieces and, well, certainly having exchanged rooks, that's beneficial to black, but should still be roughly level. But after rook f3 check, instead of playing the king back to e8, Warmerdam played king g6. Right. Let's see. Knight c6. So that allows the rook in to g4. Now, here is where I think after bishop f6... Well, first of all, let's just look at bishop c6. I'm going to get you to think in a moment. Rook g4 check. Oh, this is a killer. This is an absolute killer. You can see that the king is in desperate trouble. So that's why bishop f6 was played. Right. Here is where I'd like you to have a think. I'm going to have a drink, and I'll see you on the other side of this short message. Experience chess in a whole new way with Mephisto Phoenix. Real wood and high-quality pieces offer an outstanding playing experience. Thanks to innovative piece recognition and LED move display, you can play more comfortably than ever. Simple setup and intuitive operation. Start immediately from any position. Quick evaluation of your game at a glance. Buy now in the Millennium Shop. Cheers. This Think and Drink moment is brought to you by Millennium Computers, and I'm very proud to promote their Mephisto Phoenix computer. PowerPlay viewers can receive a 10% discount on the Mephisto Phoenix, and indeed all other Millennium products. Just click through on the link and put in the code PowerPlayMephisto. And do check out the Millennium website to see all their offers. Right, let's get back to the game. What did you think? Well, after Harikrishna's next move, black resigned. Knight e5 check. Wow, that is the absolute killer. Well, it's clearly no good for the king to advance here to h5. It's going to get chopped down with g4 and rook h3 mate. So this has to be taken. And then rook g4 check. The king has to come to h5. Rook g5. And you can see the bishop is on the line of the king. So rook takes bishop check. Well, let me see. If king g6, then, well, we have this lovely kind of mill. Take here. I mean, this is absolutely terrible. Here's a nice variation, actually. If g5 takes, bishop takes f3, rook g8, check, and bishop f3 mate. Okay, let's come back to the start. So knight e5, bishop takes, rook g4, king h5, rook g5 check, king h6, rook e5 check. What about g5? Okay, so bishop takes g5. So, well, king h5 must be losing. So it's on the same line. So king g6. Now, very nice move. Rook e6 check. Now, I'll look at king takes bishop in a second, but this is very amusing. If king g7, yeah, listen, I realise it's possible to do this kind of stuff, but watch this. Bishop h6, and now bishop h3. This is absolutely wonderful. So white wants to put the bishop in place of the rook, and that's checkmate. If knight g6, rook e7. Absolute killer. Bishop e6, mate threatened, as well as rook g7, and yeah, it's winning. Okay, let's come back to this position. So bishop takes g5 here, rook e6. Yeah, let's finish with king takes g5. h4 check, king h5, and now mate in 2, rook f5, and bishop f3. Wow. Oh. Pity Warmerdam resigned after knight e5. Would have been really nice to go to mate, but listen, I understand. Well, what a sparkling game, and it just shows that even without queens, I mean, there are so many other pieces on the board that you can generate an attack. But yeah, I think, you know, this is one of those classic cases where Warmerdam had obviously done his homework very well and reached roughly this position in his analysis, and the computer said black is okay. Whether it's an advantage or not is another matter, but black is doing all right. But in practice, this was just too difficult. And I come back to this thing that black's pieces just didn't have proper anchors in the position. They were always vulnerable. And in the end, well, okay, mistakes were traded, but that was a beautiful finish, 95. Great stuff. So let's have a quick look at scores. We've got Pragyanananda on 3.5. He beat Mendonça today, I seem to recall. Yes, he beat Mendonça. And the other decisive game was Fedoseev beat Eric Gaisi. So anyway, Pragyanananda 3.5, Abdusattorov 3, and then 5 players on 2.5, Gukesh, Caruana, Fedoseev, Akaima, and Harikrishna. We've only had 4 rounds. It's already been a great tournament. A long way to go. Remember, it's 13 rounds in total. And I'll see you tomorrow for Game 5.